Be sure to use the chapter select below to find what you need. Here I have Photoshop open, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. We are going to use letter size print again, 8.5 by 11. If you want yours to be landscape instead of portrait, you can go to image, image rotation, and 90 degrees, and that will give you this orientation instead. I'm gonna leave mine at portrait, which is short at the top, long on the side, but you can change it if you would like. So I'm going to just minimize Photoshop. It's still down here. I can still find it. And I'm going to create a folder on my desktop. I can right click here or go to File with Finder selected, File and New Folder. And I'm going to name this Dream Photos. You can name it Dream Images, you can name it really whatever you want. And I am going to open Finder, which is where all of my photos are, and find the photos that I want to use for this project. So I already have mine in my assignments folder under Dream. But let's say I didn't. Let's say this was my downloads folder. I'm going to move all of these into here. Just everything that I know that I might use, and maybe anything from the stock photos that I gave y'all. So I know that I need a large sky. I'm going to use this carousel view here to look through. So I know I need a large sky in a place. A little too snowy. That one's not quite at the right angle. A little too busy. Also not quite at the right angle, but you know, I might use this one, so I am going to go ahead and add it in here. Did that go in? It did not. I'm going to drag it, hold it, drop it. There it is. And I also have some of these weird sort of surrealist ones, and I'm going to grab one of those too. Not entirely sure which ones I'm going to use yet. I have a rough idea based on my thumbnail, but I'm not 100% sure. I just sort of know the angle that I'm working with. Let's take this one. Okay. And then I know that I want some skies, so I'm gonna grab I like this one. I'm gonna grab this one. And maybe one of these funky textures. I like this one. Let's do this one. And so now these are all in a folder titled Dream Photos that I can put into my assignments, Dreamscape folder, and now I will be able to find those whenever I need to. And I have a rough idea of the images that I'm going to use, so I'm going to go ahead and bring those in. Assignments, Dream Photos, and I'm gonna grab, let's see, I think I'm gonna grab this one, hold shift, grab this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and I'm just gonna drag them till I'm in Photoshop and drop them. That one's fine. This one I'm going to make a little bit bigger. That one's good. This one I'm going to make bigger, and I'm going to rotate it so that it fills the whole canvas. Going to make this one bigger. Going to make this one bigger. Okay. All right. So I am missing a photo. Let me see. Ah, there it is. The important picture of me on a giant bug. Yay. All right. So now I've got them all in. From here, I need to decide, what's going where. So for now, I'm going to hide some of these layers that I don't need yet. And I'm going to start by working on this photograph of me. Photograph of me seated side saddle on a large beetle. And I want to cut myself out of this image. So I'm going to make sure that I have this image selected. I'm going to go ahead and name this me so that I can tell what it is. And I'm going to use select and select subject. I'm going to Alt and scroll to zoom in, and it did an okay job here, but I need to do some tweaking. So I'm going to go over here to my quick selection tool, which is like a brush, and I'm going to use these here. This is to add the selection, this is to subtract the selection. I'm going to use these to adjust my selection. This is the size of your selection brush, so I might make this a little bit smaller. Okay, all of that looks good. Now I'm going to add top of my head, which is blending in very nicely with those mushrooms in the back. And I'm going to add my shoes. Okay, that all looks good. Add the rest of my leg there. Go back to my subtract. Get rid of some of that mushroom. Go back to my add. All right, that's a decent enough selection. So I'm going to click this select and mask button here. And now you can see that it looks like I filled the background with red, but what I'm actually doing is I'm editing the mask that I've created from that selection in the more advanced manner. So we are going to use our, again, add and subtract here to sort of refine the masks selection. You can zoom in. Again, you can Alt scroll or Command plus and Command minus to zoom in and out. I don't need this to be super accurate. I just want to clean it up a little bit. There are far more accurate ways to make sure that you're cutting everything out. Using the pen tool is a big one. Ah, see, that's too much. I'm gonna go back in with my minus brush here. Make it a little smaller. Mask that out. My add brush here. Okay. Whoops. Command Z. Really loves getting those mushrooms. That's why you really need to take these photos on a white background. But I didn't have one on a white background, so we're using this. All right. Good enough. I'm going to click OK. And now I have this selection. If you notice, I didn't actually mask it out. I could, if I wanted to, mask it out at this point. And then I have this. But for this, what I actually want to do is I just want to make a copy of this selection. So I'm going to use File and, I'm sorry, not File, Edit, Copy, create a new layer, Edit, and Paste. And that is going to give me just that one part that I cut out. So I'm going to delete, excuse me, I'm going to hide, not delete, I'm going to hide this image of me with the background. And now I have this image of me. It's not perfectly cut out, but we're not going to worry about that right now. What we are going to worry about is getting me onto my dog's back. So first thing is I'm going to flip this image of me. Image rotation, flip. I don't want to flip the canvas horizontal. We're going to edit, transform, flip horizontal. There we go. So there I am. I'm going to use edit, free transform, and I'm going to shrink myself down and rotate me until I am sitting awkwardly upon my dog's back. I think that's a little too far rotated. There we go. A little bit smaller. I was real small in this. Okay. All right. So that's me. I'm real tiny. I'm on my dog's back. Select subject, and got a little bit too much of the shower in here, so I'm gonna zoom in and remove some of this. It's picked up a little bit of his white fur there. I don't really need his dog tag, so I'm probably gonna get rid of that. Make sure his mouth gets in there, and get rid of this piece of the shower. Oop. That should be good. That should be good. Oh, we got a little bit of shower over here too. We'll just take that out. Okay. This time I'm not going to select and mask it. I'm just going to leave it the way that it is. Edit, copy, make a new layer, edit, and paste. For those of you who like keyboard shortcuts, like doing things quickly, this is going to be Command and J. Command and J is going to give you a new layer with your selection in it. All right, so I did miss part of his paw, so let's go back and do that again. Open my history window here so you can see what I'm undoing. Quick select. I'm gonna go back in, get that little bit of his paw, and then of course we got a big chunk of the shower in there. There we go. That's probably good. Okay. Command J, new layer via copy, and there we go. I'm going to use my eraser tool, E for eraser, and just clean up any of these little bits. You could mask this out like we did in the double exposure, but I'm not too concerned about needing to get this image back. I'm going to go back to this photo of me and zoom in and get rid of this little, whatever the heck that was. There we go. All right. Zoom back out. Whoop. Okay, so now I have this image of me on my dog's back. Whoops. You double click on a layer, you get the layer styles. Don't worry about that, we don't need that. I'm just gonna move this layer of me above this layer of my dog, name that me, name that Thorin, that's my dog's name. And there we go. So I have me on my dog's back. So a good start to this surrealist dreamscape. Okay, so I've got this photo of my dog, this photo of me, and I'm gonna start building the background. So I have a couple of different things I have for background. Wasn't entirely sure which one I was gonna use. So I'm gonna kind of look at them all. I like this. I like this. I want to be really big. I was very tiny on my dog's back, but he was very, very large. So I guess he was just very, very large. I like this. It's not quite at the right angle. I like this too. It's very freaky. I think I'm going to go with this one. And I'll adjust the angle of it to fit what I need. So this is my image. I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to hold Alt. All right. Well, first I'm going to just make it bigger. I'm going to hold Command, and I'm going to grab these corners and stretch out the perspective of my image. And just kind of move around till I find something I like. Command, stretch that out a little bit more. Go back up here. Bring that back in. Yeah, sure. So it's not perfect, but I can work with it. And I'm not actually going to use any of this. I actually just want this part. So I'm going to go in with my quick selection tool, put it to plus, and start grabbing all of this. Make sure I've got my weird spiky rocks in there. And now, if I make a new layer from my selection, I'm going to end up with a new layer that has these balloons and sky in it. But what I want is the opposite of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Select, Inverse, which is going to select the opposite, and I'm going to Command J to get my copied layer. Now, I'm going to turn on my sky and move my sky layer behind here. And there we go. Now we're getting dreamy. Edit and free transform to make that sky nice and big. Okay, so we're getting somewhere here. So I've got all the background. I can go back in and clean up all these little edges here if I want to, but it's not that big of a deal right now. I'll worry about it in a moment. The thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and try to get as much of this image to match the light sources. Get the light sources to match each other as much as possible. So I made this a little bit difficult on myself. In this portrait of me, the light is coming down very bright right on me, a spotlight. In this portrait of my dog, the light's coming off from the right-hand side, and it is coming through a window that is closed with the blinds, so it's very dark. This background image has the light coming from the left, and the other background image has the light coming from the left and behind. So my lights are all over the place. So I'm going to try to match up these light sources as well as I can. And I'm going to do this by choosing the strongest light source in the image with the most contrast. So that's going to be probably this background part. And I'm going to try to dull that down a little bit. So here's my layer. I'm going to call this mountains. And there's a couple of different ways I can do this. I'm going to show you a few. The quickest and easiest is to use the burn tool. So the burn tool is going to darken whatever area that you're in, trying to bring it as close to black as possible. So the problem with the burn tool is that usually things that you burn with the burn tool can get really saturated. So I'm going to undo that and go to highlights because I'm burning highlights. And just go ahead and burn all of that so it looks a bit more like it's in shadow. So now we have more of a cloudy sort of day to it. I have washed it out a lot though and decreased a lot of the contrast. So now that I've done all this burning with my burn tool, I'm going to go to my adjustments and I'm going to go ahead and do a where'd it go? Bright. Nope, not hue and saturation. Brightness and contrast adjustment layer. And this is going to affect all the layers beneath it, so it's also going to affect the sky. And I'm just going to bring my brightness up and my contrast up a little bit. Okay, so sun is coming from over here, so I need to make sure that my my self-portrait is also lit the same way, or you know, as close as I can get it. It's a dreamscape, it doesn't have to be totally accurate. So a reminder that you use bracket left for ensmallening, that's not a word at all, for shrinking, and bracket right for growing the brush tool. So I'm going to use the burn, again set to highlights because this is a lot of light here. And that's going to give me a bit more shadow. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing on the photo of Thorin. Because the light's coming from the wrong direction. Now I actually have a couple of options here. What I could do is I could flip Thorin and flip me and then just change that lighting completely. But I like the angle that Thorin is at the moment. So I think I'm going to flip the mountains layer. So I'm going to go to edit, transform, flip horizontal. And I'm going to flip the sky layer, edit, transform, and flip horizontal. And now obviously I have shaded this in incorrectly. So because I use destructive editing on this instead of non-destructive editing, I do have to go all the way back to before I flipped and before I did my burns. And change that. So I'm going to go back to before I did my first burn tool. I'm going to flip this one. Whoops, sorry. Transform, flip horizontal, and I'm going to flip this one, edit, whoa, transform, and flip horizontal. All right. So what if I wanted to do something non-destructive here? In particular, this shadow that I was trying to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask, but I'm not going to create a mask the way that we created a mask before. I'm going to create what's called a clipping mask. Oop, but not on that layer. I'm going to create a new layer and create a clipping mask. So what a clipping mask is going to do is it's going to attach a layer to this image. So if I go to my brush tool, we'll just use a soft round, no hardness, whatever. You will see that it only affects this one part. So I'm going to start brushing in a shadow here. And then I'm going to play around. Woo! I'm going to play around with these blend modes a little bit. I'm thinking darken is, or excuse me, not darken. Multiply is going to be my best bet. I'm just going to decrease like so. Okay, not horrible. I might want to change the color of this. The brown is a little weird. So I'm going to go select this and I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Hue and Saturation. And I'm going to find a bluer hue. Because we have a blue sky and we've got these kind of brownish. I'm going to find a bluer hue with a lower saturation and darken that a bit. Oop. Add a little bit of my brown back in there. Okay, I can come back and play around more. I'm going to go ahead and name this clipping layer My Shadows. My Shadows? My Shadows. And let's do the same thing with Thorin. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to turn said layer into a clipping mask. And I'm going to use the same colors that I did here to create some shadows for him. Whoop. Make sure you're on the mask layer. Those are a little bit too dark, I think. But I can play around with it a bit. All right, so let's see. We still need a shadow for Thorin. So above the layer that's right below Thorin, I am going to grab a dark reddish brown color and a nice thick brush, and I'm just gonna add in the rough approximation of a shadow, set that to multiply, play with the opacity a bit. My ground curves upwards, so I'm going to make sure my shadow also curves upwards. Switch to E to get some erasing in there. And then he's got one leg way over here, so that's going to be in shadow as well. All right. We are getting somewhere. Let's go ahead and give me a shadow as well. Make sure that that's under me. Just enough so that I'm casting a shadow onto Thorin. Put that on multiply. And another thing I can do here is I can actually clip this clip this shadow layer for me to Thorin, so that I cannot accidentally paint off of him. See, I can't do anything up there, only down here. All right. Things are looking pretty weird. Let's see what else we can do to harmonize this image. I'm going to come back in here and futz around a little bit. That means mess around a little bit with some of my images. My move tool up here is going to let me move these things, this thing around. Oh, I like that. I like the rhythm that's happening here between this and that. I'm not going to worry too much about the fact that the sky and the ground doesn't look right, because this is a surrealist piece. It doesn't need to look right. The less it looks right, the more surrealist it is. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this sky. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I use my adjustments, but this time I'm going to use hue and saturation, and I'm going to change the color of my sky to something strange. I guess that's not really strange. It's just very blue. We're going to make it very blue. And let's go ahead and do a hue and saturation change on our mountains as well. So because my hue and saturation is above my mountains and my sky, it's going to change both, which might not be what you want, but it's looking kind of cool to me. I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, I like that. Okay. At this point, I have a lot of layers going on. I'm going to pop my layers panel out here so you can see it. I have a lot of layers going on. I am going to start organizing these into groups. So to create a new group, I'm going to hit this folder button. I'm going to drag my first group up to the very top, and I'm going to name this group subjects. click all of the things that I want in my subjects group, hold Shift, click, 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 and place them in this group. And now I can close that. And then I'm going to make a new group and call it background. And including adjustment layers, click, 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 everything that I need. Now, I have some stuff in here that I haven't used yet. I actually decided I just didn't want to use this one, so I'm going to drag it down to the trash. I haven't had a chance to use this one yet. I am going to use it at the very, very end. Oops, double click, get layer style. So I'm going to scooch it up above my subjects. Still hidden for right now, we'll get to that. These images of me and Thorin that are not cut out, I don't really need those. I'm going to go ahead and leave them just in case, but I'm going to put them at the bottom. And this image I didn't even wind up using. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it or not. I don't think I will, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I do love that photo of an Archimedes screw, but I don't really need it. Okay, so now that I have, I'm going to go ahead and pop this back in here. Now that I have these in folders, I can move and transform them as a group. So my subjects, I want to make them bigger. So I can grab the whole group and move it around. And I can also free transform the whole group at once. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not quite sure how big I want this one. It was pretty small in the thumbnail that I drew. But I wasn't entirely sure what angle the background was going to be at. I think I'm going to try messing around a little with the, no, not quite like that. Not quite like that. I'm going to try messing around a little bit with the perspective on this. Sure. And then see if I can't move this around a little bit. So I'm really loving the background. I'm not super loving what I've done with the subjects. So I think I'm going to go in and mess around with these shadows a little bit. And I'm also going to add a hue and saturation adjustment. Now remember, anything that you add an adjustment layer to, it will affect everything underneath it. Doesn't matter if it is in a different folder. However, you can create a clipping mask for your hue and saturation. So this is clipping the hue and saturation layer just to the shadows. If I move it down here, it's clipping it just to my photo. And if I move it below, say clip it to my dog, then it is just affecting him. I really want this to stand out a lot more. And I want it to be a lot weirder looking. Not that weird. So I'm going to play around a little bit with this off camera, and then I will get back to adjusting it. I did a few extra adjustment layers. You see here I added a curves layer and a color balance layer. I added these to my dog. I clipped them. If I release the clipping mask, they'll apply to everything. So I'm going to clip them. And they are clipped to this layer. If you can see these little arrows here showing that they are clipped to this layer. I like this color and I want to see if I can make it work with this photo of me. So I am going to right click my color balance, duplicate layer. We'll just call it color balance 1 copy and move it up above me. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the curves layer. Duplicate layer, curves 1, and then, oh, it needs to be all the way up there above the shadows. Okay. I think I have a layer that is no longer, there it is. Sometimes clipping masks can get detached, and you just need to go back and create that clipping mask again. Although, to be honest, I did kind of like that color. I just need the shadows to be clipped. I don't know if this layer is doing me any favors anymore. Needs to be down here. There we go. I should have named it. This is Thorin Shadows. And this is just the big shadow. Okay. I guess this is doing okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. This one got moved over a little bit too much. I'm gonna free transform it. Nope. I'm gonna free transform it with my, there we go. Remember to hold command to be able to warp your transforms. Which way is the sun coming from? This way? There we go. Okay, so I'm a little bit happier with this. And I'm going to keep working with it. So I'm going to add this weird paint texture. Probably on a lighten layer. Turn it down a little bit, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it above just the sky. Come on, Photoshop. There we go. There we go. Mess around with it a little bit more. I like that. Let's see. I want to get some of the texture in there without losing the color. Let's go with overlay. Okay, let us, nope. Let us make a new color adjustment layer on top of everything. Just a solid color. Not worried about it for right now. And I think I'm gonna do probably either difference or exclusion. Turn it way down. And pick another color. Something in the greens, I think. No, looks kind of gross. Let's do blues or purple. Yeah, a nice purple. And that's really gonna bring my whole image together, but I'm not done yet. I want to keep messing around with stuff, so I'm going to show you some adjustment layers. So I have everything already set up here, and I want to add adjustment layers that affect all of my layers together. So one thing I don't love about this is that it's getting a little washed out. So I'm going to use a brightness and contrast adjustment layer to boost my contrast back up. I like that better. Now, let's see what else we've got. I want to play a little bit more with the darkness of the colors that I have, the values that I have. So I'm going to use this levels. Levels lets you adjust the lights and the dark values. So you're going to adjust it from here. This is going to be your midtones. To the left is lighter, to the right is darker. These are going to be your highlights. These are going to be your shadows. So I want my shadows to be darker, but not too dark. I think my highlights are plenty bright, so I'm going to brighten my midtones. And then I'm just going to keep playing around. Let's see some more of these. Color balance is going to allow me to adjust specific colors. So midtones is going to be any of those medium colors. This is going to make your midtones more red, more cyan, more green, more magenta. If I want my shadows, for example, to be bluer, just go in, make my shadows bluer. More cyan. You can see that the color balance can change a lot in the image. I'm actually going to, I think I'm going to maybe, no, not so much yellow. Maybe some more cyan in my highlights. Some more red. Who knows? You do you. Now let's say that I decide I don't actually want this color balance layer. I can just drag it to the trash can. That's fine. If I want to see how things look without it, I can use this eyeball. Change my layer visibility. I like both of those, except I think that my lights are too light on these levels. So I'm going to bring, whoop. Oh, it's my brightness. I'm going to bring my brightness down a little bit. My contrast down a little bit. All right, what other adjustment layers do we have? We have black and white, does what it says on the tin. Adjust these for each of your individual colors, individual values. This will make your cyans darker, this will make your cyans lighter. Blues. So on and so forth. I don't need that. I'm going to get rid of it. Remember that any any adjustment layer that's above another adjustment layer is going to also affect that layer. So my black and white was underneath my levels before, but I can also put it above my levels. This really comes down to experimentation. What do you like? What do you want to change? Selective color is very interesting. You can kind of choose to adjust just a specific color and kind of tweak it to exactly what you need. Invert does what it says on the tin, inverts the whole image. This can be kind of interesting if you decide to use it like under just one part. So let's say I use it just on the background, or inside the background layer, maybe just on the sky. Whee! Inverting just the sky, or inverting the sky and the texture. Okay. You probably don't really need to mess with posterize or threshold or color lookup or any of these. These are really specifically for photographs, although you can play with them. You also have the option to use an adjustment preset, but they're pretty boring. They're just photo presets. Mostly for like fixing photos, but you know, you can mess around. I do want to see you use some single adjustment layers to do this though. Okay. So at this point, it's just going to be a matter of figuring out, am I happy with it yet? And I don't love the composition. I just put all that work into it, but I don't love what I have. So I am going to play around a little bit more. Again, using my command on my free transform to mess around with the angle of things. Okay. Don't love the lack of contrast down here, so I think I'm going to shift the color of my mountains and sky. I just want to shift the color of my mountains. Let's create a clipping mask for that. You know, I liked it before. Maybe it is the color of my subjects that I need to shift. Maybe we need to go a little more weird with it. Oop, my color balance not clipped. Was it clipped before? Oh, interesting. Interesting. That's why it was affecting my mountains. Let's bring those back to... Let's bring those back to that. Well, you know, I'm going to undo a little bit here. Okay. It's my color balance layer. If I look here, modify color balance layer. It's my color balance layer that's really affecting it. Whoops. So I think what I need to do is I need to go in to Thorin here and create a hue and saturation layer that is clipped specifically to him, and then play around a little bit more with his colors. Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and duplicate that. Hue and saturation 3. Whoa! Some exciting things happen when you don't have the clipping mask on. Ooh, oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Let's go in and just put so this will give you an adjustment clipping layer. So let's go in and adjust the levels on me. So I'm a little bit darker, and let's do a hue and saturation on me. So I am a little bit closer to my real human colors. All right, things are definitely getting surreal here, very dreamlike. What else can we do? Well, of course, we can apply a filter kind of to the whole thing, all sorts of wild stuff, filter galleries. It's not going to show you anything at the moment because it's on a layer that doesn't have anything on it. It's on a levels layer. You need to use your filter over like a specific layer. So like I could put a filter over just me. And do something really wild, like make myself a cutout, give myself a neon glow, film grain. Who knows? I'm going to leave it like that. And maybe just one more tweak. Put us in the lower third there. And bring this up a little further and bring my sky up a little further. Ooh, yes. Do I like the white? Or do I like the lower clouds? I like the detail in these clouds. I like the contrast between this texture and this texture. So I'm going to go ahead and call that done. Now that I have it done, I'm just going to save it. I should have been saving this whole time. Remember to save on your computer. You're going to be putting it in your Dream folder, and it is going to be called your last name, first name, _ dream.psd. And then you're immediately going to File, Export, Quick Export as a PNG, pop it in the same place, and you're done. And that is our Surrealist Dreamscape assignment.